Hi, this is Erica.
Hey, this is Griselda.
For the first time in Digital Moose Lounge's 20-year history, as we take Canada Day celebrations online, we hope to lift up the Bay Area Canadian community and connect with friends and family everywhere.
During DML's Canada Week, we have teamed up with amazing sponsors, partners, volunteers, and members to celebrate our Canadian culture together every day.
So from all of us at the Digital Moose Lounge to all of you celebrating Canada's 153rd birthday, wherever you are, from Bonavista to Vancouver Island.
From the Arctic Circle to the Great Lake waters, we wish you friendship and good health on this Canadian holiday.
Bonne fête du Canada.
Happy Canada Day, eh?
Hello, fellow Canadians and First Nations friends in the Bay Area. My name is Rana Sarkar. I'm the Consul General of Canada, Northern California, and Hawaii. And I'm here to welcome you to what is undoubtedly one of the strangest Canada Days in history. Amidst a universal pandemic, a global fight for racial justice and equality, I'm proud to be here with the Digital Moose Lounge in support of Canadian unity and virtual togetherness during one of the most uncertain and tumultuous times in recent memory. This year, Canada Day will highlight the strength that unites us. To fellow Canadians and to many friends across the United States, we will get through this together. It heartens me to see the resilience and community spirit of the Canadians both here and at home. That strength is remiss if we don't acknowledge the original Canadians, the First Nations, the Inuit, the Métis people on whose lands we live. I echo the Prime Minister's words when I say, no relationship is more important to me and to Canada than the one with the Indigenous peoples. I believe strongly that the Indigenous peoples have the rights to participate and to be heard in decisions that affect them at the global and local level. As we carry on with Canada Day, and celebrate the vibrant communities around the globe, we must continue to advocate and to show support for our First Nations friends and remember the history upon which our great country was built. My office and Global Affairs Canada, missions around the world, will continue to keep building alliances, partnerships, as we work to renew relations with the Indigenous peoples everywhere. Bonne fête du Canada. Happy Canada Day, everybody. I look forward to sharing this special day with you and my family from the Canadian official residence here in San Francisco.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Chris Lorway, and I'm Executive Director here at Stanford Live. And I'm thrilled to have two artists joining us on the eve of Canada Day. The first, William Prince, is a singer-songwriter based in Winnipeg. His debut album, Earthly Days, received 2 JUNO nominations and 1 for Best Contemporary Roots Album of the Year. His latest album, Reliever, was just longlisted for the Polaris Prize and is a wonderful collection of songs. Iskwē is a singer-songwriter and activist. Her latest, Advocacy, has received 2 JUNO nominations, including the Adult Alternative Album of the Year, where she's nominated with folks like Leonard Cohen and City in Color, and the Music Video of the Year for the video Little Star. So we're really happy to have you both with us. How are you both doing?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Doing great, yeah. Same thing. How are you, Iskwē? Good to see you.
I know, long time, my friend.
Man, last time I saw you, I think I was handing you a big bag of those Cheetos that are like, remember those? The North Country Fair, I think it was, when we were camping out in the wild and wishing for a snack from the store or something like that.
Right? I think I have a photo of that too, when it was like the 6 a.m. airport drop.
Yeah.
Both like,
probably still have that bag of Cheetos too. Pretty cute.
They would last.
So,
See you guys. Hi, Chris.
yeah, so the first question for both of you guys is obviously it's a bit of a crazy world we're living in right now, and just kind of curious how both of you are sort of dealing with being locked up due to the pandemic.
Mm. Would you like to go first?
After you.
Oh.
For sure.
You
Sure.
go.
Yeah, I'm I'm actually going crazy. No, it's it's hills and valleys of all things. There's days where you're confident and thankful for reflection time, and that's mainly the vibe. I found this time very enlightening to be around my family, be with my son. I was thinking it took a pandemic for us to stop touring, and to be here. It feels like I'm making up for some time we had apart when he was a baby. So, privileged enough to be okay to sit still, to be safely at home and wait it out. So I really have no complaints in that department. Happy there. I'm steady working on music. I assembled just before everything kind of shut down. I put together a little demo studio for writing and recording things, and been working on a gospel record now. So
Awesome.
that's kind of, I was feels like we're kind of at a funeral right now. And I learned gospel music in a time when people were grieving. And I think of right now with Black Lives Matter, and just everyone feeling a sense of grief for livelihoods, for normalcy, for seeing family being estranged. And it really is, it feels, it's against our will, and it's not natural, I guess, for humans not to have that interaction. So it's been quite revealing to me to see that. Yes, you miss the gathering, you miss the people. All those times I turned down getting wings with a friend or something. It's like, oh, maybe I'll make time for that when it comes back to the new normal, whatever. But overall, happy and blessed to be where I am.
Thanks. How about you, iskwē?
Yeah, the peaks and valleys has definitely been a part of the process for me as well. When I got the call from my manager, we were getting prepped to leave our homes to drive to the airport, to get on a plane, to go to the JUNOs, to be performing at the JUNOs. And then my manager called the morning that like my bags were at the front door, I was getting set, and she's like, unpack your bags. And I was like, ugh, what do you mean? And then it was just like, after that, everything just sort of went, shoo.
Yeah.
And, for me, it was a moment where the wave of everything was so massive that the tsunami of how it hit, right? Where I was like, it's okay that, like that wave's over there. I see it coming. It's fine. It's not that big. And then it was like, and I was knocked out. And, it took some time for me to figure out how I was going to work through it. And, much like yourself, William, it was a blessing as well as this moment to, something to work through, but also the good that's coming from all of this self-work that I'm being offered the opportunity to do now. I've been touring nonstop for a decade. So I haven't had a summer where I'm not exhausted in, I don't even know how long. So it just kept rolling over and rolling over. So the level of burnout that I realized I was experiencing once everything stopped was like, it was wild. So now I'm kind of, coming to a bit of a nice spot in terms of that exhaustion, right? And taking the time, taking the rest, getting to know myself, spending time with my dog, who I love very much. And, and it's just like, it comes with a lot of work, but the universe has pushed pause on us. And I think it's important for us to pay attention individually to what that means for us. And so I'm trying my best to do that.
And I know I imagine it's particularly difficult for both of you because you have these new records out, and I'm sure there was lots of tour dates planned to support those. So trying to figure out how to shift that over to another medium, whether it's something like this that's digital or other means, and even trying to figure out when things are going to start back up again must be very strange and slightly surreal.
At the very beginning, I actually went into a state of protest where I was like, I am not working on any new material.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, no, I'm not going to, because there was a lot of that. I don't know if you felt the same, William, at any point in time, but I felt like all of a sudden there was now this new message of like, we need our artists. This is your time to be really taking this opportunity and like making new art and, do all the things. And it was like a different form of pressure just being dumped on us. Like we weren't going to be good artists if we couldn't use this chaos time to create. And I'm like, no, I'm going to not do that. And then, of course that didn't last very long.
Yeah, it's fighting against the natural thing too. Everyone reacted in a way. I liked seeing the messages of there is no pressure to write the next best novel. This is a traumatizing thing, and people deal with it differently. I've kept about the same output as always. I'm kind of always working on it. It felt like I had the time to go back and deal with some of the half songs. That was kind of neat, and being able to leave the guitar out of the case kind of led me to grabbing it more, picking it up right away rather than, I have 72 hours at home. I don't want to look at the guitar. I don't want to play it right now. I just want to rest and then get ready for the next thing, because there was no shortage of rehearsal time when there was a show multiple times a week. And then just I'm naturally, I get a little restless anyway, regardless of what it is, and dealing with that, just the switching gears. Once I wrapped my head around it, once the NBA got canceled, once the Junos were taken off the board, it was like, wow, this is a community thing that we can't fight. And I think the best thing I can do for myself is, like I say, pick the curbside studio, make that happen, so that when I got to the 2-month point and I was like, okay, well, we still have a long ways to go. Now that I'm ready, at least I have the option. So I'm glad I thought ahead in that way. And yeah, I'm happy that it's been productive for me. I have my son half the time through the week while his mom works from home. So we worked out a great system there, and it makes me buckle down in the time that I do have.
Yeah. So why don't we hear a little bit of how great that studio sounds, and can we get a song?
Sure, definitely. Yeah, perspective song here about how everything I'll ever become in this life is basically sleeping upstairs right now. My son and his happiness and his accomplishments, and what is this privilege and bit of a leg up now if I can't use it to help him and teach him the responsibility of that to pay forward too. And so it's for him. Pardon me. Tell me your dreams. Make them as big as you can, so then they have the best chance of maybe working out. Sometimes nothing works out. Sometimes don't be alarmed. Don't shy away when you're in the wrong. I can testify to what it's like being lost inside yourself, a personal hell. But I want to live to the second last day that my children do, selfishly so I can see them through and all that they become. That's all I'll ever become. So spend it all, every last bit that you have. If you need to buy back the peace you lost to the upkeep of renting a room for your soul, I can see how every last downfall of men could one day lead to the end if we can find harmony and treat others like we'd like to be treated fair. I know it's not really fair. That don't mean that the outcome should be decided solely by the income of people who don't need it for living still. I want to live to the second last day that my children do, selfishly so I can see them through and all that they become. That's all I'll ever 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 become. Normally I'd ask people to sing along here when we go, that's all I'll ever become. 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 That's all I'll ever become.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What I love in listening to the album is just how every song almost seems like a different character who's sharing an idea or a message, and it seems like you're well wise beyond your years, and in the way that you're sort of offering this advice. And I know in some ways you're trying to characterize these different people in your life. And can you talk a little bit about that and the way that you constructed this particular record?
Yeah, the record was really a means of transition from, truthfully, one of the hardest parts of one of the hardest times of my life. Truthfully, my dad had passed away just before Earthly Days came out, and never really got to see the fruits of all this labor, all the songs he taught me, all the stuff we learned together, and then the estrangement from my son's mother, pregnant at the time, just out of our control, and grieving that, learning to deal with that. And then that's where all these songs were kind of being made. And then in the middle of that, my son being born. So you feel all these different ranges of feelings, emotions, and different characters, different people that mean a lot to me. It's no secret that I sing about family and friends. So this record is very personal in that regard, that it was a bridge of healing to get to what I plan to be the future chapters in the story.
Amazing.
I always love listening to you sing.
Well, thank you.
It's my fave.
I always feel good. I always feel good singing when you're around. So the feeling's mutual.
No, iskwē in the same way that William is I would say sort of a minimalist in his approach. I was able to catch one of the last live gigs I caught was your show in Toronto in late January, when you did the show at the Mod Club, and sort of the idea of the sort of maximalist sort of like telling the bigger story and shouting loud, trying to make sure people are paying attention. Can you just talk about some of the ways you're thinking about your music and your art right now, and the role that it plays?
But yeah. For me, like I don't play any instruments to perform, so I'm never in a position like you, William, where I can just pick up a guitar and make the guitar sing, and then also use my voice to sing. Right? Like I just that was not the gift that I was given in life. But my mom, when I was growing up, my mom always told me to be my best self, and I translated that at being loud. So for me, it's, you know, this performance that you were at, Chris, and William, and whomever else is watching, to give some context. That was this show. So it was, you know, from the moment you walked through the front door, the show began. You know, the ushers were a part of cast. There was cast floating around. There were stilt walkers. There was, you know, visual projections. There was all kinds of things. And it was this piece that was meant to give people an opportunity to enter into a new dimension, a new realm. And what I want to do, and what I've been motivated and inspired by over the last little while, and again, which is what I've been building currently. So even still from that presentation at the Mod Club, that was like draft one. I've been wanting to build a piece for people so that when they come, they walk through that door and they're given the opportunity to come as individuals with, you know, all of their life experiences and all of their places of sentiment and understanding and you know, wherever they might be on their life journey, and then enter into this sort of neutral territory where we all get to be a part of something together, so that when we leave there, we have this collective experience that would not be the same for any two people in the room. And that's kind of the goal for me, is like, how can I be a part of my own learning and healing and share that with people so that they can be a part of their own learning and healing, but yet we can all be doing it in one evening, not, you know, the whole thing, but like a glimpse in that, a moment in time can take place all together.
Yeah. Well, I know we're going to later in the broadcast show a little clip from the Mod Club, but I know you have another song you'd like to share with us, and wondering if you'd be able to do that for us now.
Yeah. I thought it would be, what would be the right word? It would make sense to me right now to share a song that is a tune that I've often gravitated towards when I've needed something to pick me up, right? Something to help me get through moments in time. This was the first hand drum song that I ever learned to sing. And I learned to sing it with a good friend of mine named Amanda. We together heard this tune, fell in love with this tune, and we would sit around together and you know, teach each other, learn from each other, and find that voice. And for me, it offered a connection to culture and a connection to community and a connection to friendship. But then it also offered me this opportunity to share that with my immediate family. And, you know, I'm telling you all of this because this has been a big part of my experience and journey, is sort of reintegrating culture back into my family as well. You know, coming from this place where it's, you know, it wasn't always safe for members of my family to be themselves, right? Like to be proud of culture and language and those sorts of things. So it was, you know, this song acted as like a link to all of that. And it was also the song that I sang at my grandfather's funeral when he passed away. And he was like my best friend in the whole wide world. And a lot of what I do, most of what I do, is rooted in him in some way. So this tune was not written by me. This was written by Jennifer Kreisberg. And I'm going to use my lap as a drum instead, just so that, you know, it doesn't blow everybody's ears. Can you hear that? Oh, hey, hey, when Nishida ahadeo no ina. Oh, hey, Eneruska Widea when Iato, yeah, when Iato, yeah, Chokohenia, Eneruska. Chokohenia, Enerius, Eneruska, Wehado. Oh, hey, hey, when Nishida, Adeo, Nori. Oh, hey, hey, when Nishida, Adeo, Noi, Eneruska Widea, when Iado, yeah, when Iado, yeah, Chokohenia, Eneruska, Chokohenia, Enerius, Eneruska, Wehado.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Man, that's so nice to hear you again.
Aw, I know.
What's
I miss you.
Miss you. What's the general message behind that song?
That one's called Maima. It's a deer song.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So it's Jen is from the Tuscarora Nation, and it is a song. My understanding from what I've heard from her is that it's a song about her clan and her like her spirit family.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I actually got to sing that for her once too. Like I which was really awesome. Yeah.
I feel like now we're gonna out minimize each other. It's like this next song will be, solely through facial expression.
It'll be a mime.
Yeah, a mime of a song. Put this down. Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm kind of curious. You mentioned sort of that idea of reconnecting to the community, and I know you both have now chosen to live in bigger cities, Winnipeg, and I know you just moved recently from Hamilton, Toronto area to Montreal, and so as you sort of think about your place within those communities, do you find it easy to keep those connections, or what sort of work do you have to do in order to maintain those connections?
I found that, like, I'm born and raised in Winnipeg as well. And I've always lived in cities. Like, I grew up in an urban center. I grew up downtown Winnipeg, right heart in the smack downtown. And for me, there was this period of time where I craved and sought out living in the biggest cities possible. So I went from Winnipeg to Toronto to Los Angeles to New York. And then finally one day I was like, this is a lot. There's so much stimulus all the time, so much energy all the time. And then I progressively started going backwards and going into smaller cities again. And I'd been in Hamilton for 4-ish years and now in Montreal. And I feel like the journey for me in Los Angeles, I had the closest connection outside of Winnipeg and Toronto, I guess. Like those 3 cities, the connection to community was massive. There was such a huge Indigenous population. I lived with 3 other Indigenous musicians. And, so it was like my connection to culture was really strong during that time. In New York, it was non-existent, which was really lonely. I would return home a lot to get that. now that I'm in Montreal, I'm starting to find that, and it's amazing because the Quebec Indigenous, I feel there's a huge separation from that community to the rest of Canada.
Yeah.
There you go. I'm like trying to find the word, and so it's nice because I'm being welcomed and invited in, and it's making me go like, why is there even this divide here? Like, why does that exist? That's that's not our problem. The French, English, whatever the debate might be there, like Indigenous people are the first peoples, so like let's blur that little line there. So it's a how's that for a long ramble?
Well, yeah. and William, I mean, I know Winnipeg's a fairly Indigenous city, but are you able to sort of find those connections and people that you can sort of riff off of as well too?
Yeah, biggest reserve in Manitoba. Winnipeg. It's
in Canada, isn't it?
But I find great connection. When I started out, I love that there was an inclusiveness right away within the Indigenous community that kind of gave me my footing. I started off in a group really called Indian City with a gentleman by the name of Vince Fontaine, who founded a band called Eagle and Hawk years and years ago, and he was amongst the scene. The names I heard growing up in Peguis, like Seaweed and Ernest Monias, and you'd hear all these guys on NCI FM, and I thought was the starting point. And then you come to Winnipeg, and it's a great community. One of my best, my biggest collaborator and confidant, and happens to double as one of my dearest friends, Scott Nolan. The guy's produced all my records, and from that we have a great kinship, and he is one of the strongest advocates. I often joke that he's more First Nations than I am, and he's an Irishman. His works and empathy for the community and speaking out and always being there to lend his voice to the issues is something I've come to count on, and it's helped me feel more confident. Who would have thought an Irishman would help me find my own confidence in being First Nations? And you just find those people in life that help bring out the best in you. You hang around collaborators and people who are successful, you'll eventually find your own success. And you want to be a great songwriter, hang around with great songwriters and listen to great songs. It'll just it's a natural thing. And speaking of the city and stuff, I still feel I've been an old man since I was a kid. I'd love to live about 10 minutes outside the city eventually. That's my goal. That's what all this is for. The grand scheme is just to find that little acreage just outside. I'm happy to live in a beautiful neighborhood, safe neighborhood in Winnipeg now, and have a yard, for my son for the first time. We were living in a little apartment and different house before, and so that's been really great. I do love the city. But I wouldn't mind taking just the 10 minutes outside, the quiet, where I can be loud all hours of the night. Say we were recording like an old Neil Young barn one day, have that set up kind of going for myself. I would love that. So
yeah,
working towards it, getting there.
Awesome.
No, I'm going to take this off track for a second here, guys. I have a story for you. Mm-hmm. So about when you said who would have thought an Irishman would be able to help you find that confidence. So years ago, I ventured over to Ireland, and when I was there, I was amazed at how many people, when I mentioned that I was Cree, how many people knew what that meant, number one, and knew about the history in Canada specifically, right? So, about reservations, about the residential school system, all of these things that I felt like, I was like, man, how am I just like meeting random people at a pub and this conversation comes up and they know about this, but yet if I were to do this at home in Canada, I wouldn't get this same level of understanding, right? And I was so amazed. And then I was traveling around from place to place, and I wound up in this beautiful little village on the west coast of Ireland and tiny, and it was a Gaelic speaking community. So there was very little English even in that community. And I was staying at an Airbnb, and I was staying with this woman. Her name is Davnet, and she was such a beautiful, she's not past, just like I knew her at that time. Such a beautiful poet and artist and philosopher and visionary. And I really learned a lot from her. But one of the big things that I learned from her was that during the Irish famine, a group of Choctaw natives sent over their treaty money because they had experienced a famine not too long before. And they didn't want, when they caught wind that there were these people that were experiencing the hardship that they had already experienced, they pulled together their money and they sent cash money over to this other faraway land that they had heard of, kind of thing, because it was a long time ago. And that was never forgotten by the Irish, is what Davnet relayed to me. And so when I walked away with that, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And I started to reflect more and more and more. And I thought back and I was like, man, like the scholar in me was like, I want to write a paper about this, but about the relationship that, and sort of the parallel pathways that Irish and Indigenous have walked down, right? Like from their relationship to the colonizers, from relationship to song and drum and dance and music, and how that is their mode of telling story, right? They're also an oral traditionalist group. So there's all of these different things that were running parallel. And then that one gesture connected the two different islands in a way that has lasted, so that now the Irish had sent over during COVID, the Irish pooled together money, sent over a bunch of cash money to the Navajo Nation in order to help during COVID-19. So I guess my point in all of that, William, is that there's this connection there, right? Like there's an understanding that's in our DNA. And I feel like it exists in humanity. We just have to give room for that to show up.
Yeah, the parallels, you say, is what brings about the empathy from nation to nation, and we were just sharing, Scott and I talk about this all the time. It's one of the great connectors we have, but I don't like bringing up stories where I don't have all the data, but there was that gift that was given of those feathers kind of in a ball that exists, I think, somewhere in Ireland, might be even Dublin, but where they put that up as a tribute to the very thing you're talking about. I was going to touch on that. You did it so perfectly. Thank you. So but that's a great story.
Yeah. And I grew up in Cape Breton Island as well too, where there is that sort of confluence of the Scots, the Irish, and the French and the Indigenous all sort of coexisting within that space. So it's sort of fascinating to see again those sort of parallels that you're talking about in that space as well. Mm-hmm. I think we're ready for another song. William, do you have another one for us?
Yes. Kind of given what we were just talking about there, I was going to play the song Old Souls. I often tell the story of the old timers in my community had this joke that they would love to tell all the services and stuff. And you can sit in a garage all you want and it'll never turn you into a car. That's kind of the same thing about being a good person, is you can go to church on Sundays and say you're this and say you're driven by these beliefs, but it's the practice of those things that actually validates what you are within, that proposed being. And so Old Souls is basically, we are all just 70 to 85 years at best, a repeated pattern of generations and ancestors before us. And so who is any one woman or man to judge a person's place in the world, their identity, who they love, and what they identify as? That's the uprising we're in. We're back in a civil and human rights movement right now, and This is a reminder that our time here is short, and the next cycle will be dependent on the one we are living now. You sit by the ocean, but that won't make you into a shell. Be the first there on Sunday, that don't mean one day heaven's there. But faith without action is just spinning, no traction, what the hell? Like a life with no dream is just waking and sleeping till you're dead. And we're all just old souls. First you crawl, then you walk, walk, then you run, crash into things now and then. All too close to the sun, generation numb, burning the tips of our wings. And we're all just old souls. We can live for the moment or dwell for atonement in disguise. Author your fate or lay down and don't even try. But direction and hunger will one day uncover and align. Purpose and meaning, restitution and healing for your time. And we're all just old souls. First you crawl, then you walk, walk, then you run, crash into things now and then. All too close to the sun, generation numb, burning the tips of our wings. And we're all just old souls. Yeah, we're all just old souls. First you crawl, then you walk, walk, then you run, crash into things now and then. All too close to the sun, generation numb, burning the tips of our wings. It's just the push and the pull, the yell and the whisper, hallucination of time, the concept of distance and some old souls. Yeah, we're all just old souls. Yeah, we're all just old souls. Old souls.
It's awesome.
It's so good. I love your stories too. Your preamble before each song is always as equally delicious as the song.
The director's commentary before you get a chance to enjoy it. I tell you how to enjoy it. Jeez, I don't know.
Well, you actually set me up perfectly, because the one thing I wanted to touch on next was this whole notion of this moment that we're living in, and you sort of described it as this new civil rights movement that we're all in the middle of, and as we look at certainly what's happening here south of the border, and I know there's similar discussions happening in Canada right now, and in fact all around the world. As artists, I know you've been engaged in these conversations, but how do you feel that this particular moment magnifies what you feel your involvement has to be in this discourse?
Oh, I've always been one. I think because of my anxiety, I fear confrontation a lot. It's just how I operate. I'm never neutral or silent because I don't have something to say, and it's kind of first time, it's quite inspiring, because when I went to the Justice for Black Lives Winnipeg gathering a few weeks ago, there were all these speeches about how we need to call out certain behaviors. And if I have a number of people watching me and liking things that I do, and here's a video, here's a photo of a great show, here's an accolade, it really is that responsibility that you're talking about, to place a voice forward for those that aren't being heard. And it's the fear of, what are you going to lose? And then you flip that mentality to, what will you gain? If it weeds out a few people that don't support this, what feels like basic, knowledge of, hey, just we want respect, opportunity, fairness. We want to be stop killing people through misunderstanding, for fear of the unknown, ignorance, and lives are being lost in real time, and it's quite frustrating. And it's like, I hear all these different arguments that most of these crimes occur or happen between, other people of color. And it's just like, do you not understand that if there wasn't a trauma to be contending with all times of the day, generation after generation, it wouldn't lead to somebody's uncle beating up their wife on the reserve, and then somebody shakes a finger from their beautiful home in the suburbs that, those people act this way and do this. And it's so negative and limited in its view that, like I say, I was speaking on this the other day, it makes you just throw your hands in the air and wish that people would gain more knowledge as to why these systems are in place that continue to oppress people that remain disenfranchised. And I had to say something. A guy talking about tired of white blame, and all that. And I was like, man, we're looking to people such as yourself to turn to each other and, like I say, expedite this process and bring a voice to these areas. Because as soon as it's dealt with, the problem goes away. Like, it's so simple. It's quite trivial almost. Like, just stop hurting these people, stop making them feel. And it's just like, man, at what point do you reach a level where the 1%, where the empathy turns off? And I can't even speak to those people, because, the biggest piece I gather is it's just them doing what they're taught. In this pandemic, I've taught Wyatt to ride a bike, and I was having a discussion with my friend who takes care of my guitars, and he said, he saw a photo of a little boy being fitted for a Klan outfit, and it's heartbreaking, and it takes the breath out of your chest. And it's like, that little boy's just doing what he's taught. He's doing what he was shown at the feet of his fathers before him and the fathers before them. And there's a systemic ignorance that dates way back. So it's like, to find the patience that you can't even be mad up front today at this person for just repeating what's come before them. I'm trying to practice an understanding and empathy for that as well, because all it's going to do is cause this pain and anxiety in you when you're feeling for other people. So I goes without saying, I stand with the brotherhood, my relations, the people of color that are not being heard and fighting to be heard, while we broadcast and share our songs and story in this beautiful, safe environment. There needs to be a time where I can say, these things mean something to me. I don't stand for them. I don't believe in them. I will call out these behaviors until they're gone. So yeah, I'm feeling quite impassioned by it. I'm getting my social feet wet, so to say. I'm doing it. I'm trying to learn and gain more knowledge, because truthfully, I'm surrounded by so many intelligent advocates, scholars who I feel are doing the work for me. But that's not good enough, because I need to jump in, and those people need support. Those people need to help the message get spread. And I hope it's something that we can abolish, this idea of someone's better than the other. We're all just old souls. I pray your next cycle is forgiving. So that's all I can say.
Yeah. Thank you. Iskwē?
Yeah, it's, I don't actually know what to say.
Sometimes I feel like, what more can Iskwē do? You know, I think
Yeah.
like, geez, give her a break. Can she have a pass on this one? Because I feel like everything iskwē does is for this. You know, I'll field this one.
Yeah. Well, and we're gonna, in a second, we're gonna see the Unforgotten from the Mod Club show, which is very much in the pocket here. So yeah.
It was sunny, my friend. I needed to hear that.
Jeez, don't worry about her.
Yeah. She's got it. Yeah.
But I mean, like, you know, I'm blushing because at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to sound insensitive, but in a way that is kind of my sentiment, where it's like, not to say that I haven't participated or that I don't participate in the fight for equality for humans, right? Like, and in this moment where our Black community, like our sisters and brothers and family from cousins from the Black community, they need our support. I'm a part of that as best as I possibly can. And it is true that I do. There's moments in time where I'm just like I've been fighting, you know, for a very long time. And I've had to sacrifice a lot in order to do that. And I don't say that to complain. That is not the sentiment behind that statement. It is, you know, it's like, man, like, humans need to do better, right? We really just we're proving my theory that I think we're all from various alien races, where we actually just like have things in our makeup that don't get us to the place where we can take care of each other. You know, I'm like, are we really just Battlestar Galactica? And there's, you know, like alien forces that are just really warring, and then there's others that are really caring. Like, how did we all end up on this one planet and we just can't get this to work? Like, children are important to their communities, to their loved ones. It doesn't matter what color they are. It doesn't matter what language they speak. It doesn't matter what food they eat for breakfast. Those things are irrelevant. The sentiment is that we care for our offspring, which is why they exist, which is why we exist, because we were cared for by our ancestors, our older generations, right? And yeah, it's like, you know, as all of this is going on, it's almost like I've reached a point of uncertainty of what I can do, what my role is, what, you know, any of those sorts of.
This is kind of the thing I was mentioning. It's that for years I've kind of, you know, truthfully, iskwē is that it's like, with your music, with your purpose, with your messages that are, you know, to people new to this, we go back a dozen years or so already, and you were well in the midst of fighting that battle for equality while I was trying to sing properly on stages, you know, and like I say, there is exhaustion in our leaders. There's where people are constantly, you invite the discussion each and every time you take a stand like this. And there's the compassion fatigue that you can feel like when you work with trauma all the time. There's all these different things. So it takes people, when you think that your contribution is insignificant, such as mine, where it's like I stood up to that person who made that really negative comment on my photo of the peaceful protest, and it garnered more attention than anything my music did in the past year, you know. And I say that with pride because it shows that there are good people, and then it shows that some humans are doing a job to bridge and fight this battle together. And so new advocates, we need new people. Like, you know, it's can't be LeBron forever. You know, you gotta recruit someone else and get new players in the league. That's what we need right now. And I'm thankful that this new generation of kids, they film everything and they have more than one opinion on everything. And I love that too. That's a fire, because this ignorance can't hide anymore. That was the difference. This racism, this injustice we see, It was there since well before the Rodney King beatings. And we just happened to have someone filming that day, like a historical turning point. And now we're holding people accountable, and that's going to lead to the snuffing out of this racism, of this mistreatment. People are going to be held to the standard that we were giving good faith to them, that they were already holding themselves to. Yeah. So with that, with the leadership comes, like I say, the new people that are willing to stand up and be a voice. And that's as simple as a share. You know, you share to your audience a whole. I shared this beautiful piece on the origins of instruments and African influence in country music the other day that CMT put out. You know, one of the I say this gently, whitest stations out there, and they're taking a stand. They're showing that we care about these people. Why can't everyone else? We need to. So I feel it in iskwē's sentiments. Like, we're all there. We're empaths as artists for the most part. So it's really draining, and it's really hard right now. And it doesn't even compare to those suffering it, you know, on the front lines of injustice. And geez, we're still in a pandemic, and we're, you know,
not fun
murder
times.
Hornets and everything. What a year.
I know, I was just saying, those murder hornets.
You know, what a year for humanity right now. But in this 2020, in this year of clarity, we are unearthing some passionate people who won't stand for this much longer. So, you know, the jig is up, and it's not gonna, you know, I'd be worrisome of the same old same.
It does feel like we're in a new state, right? Like, I'm always so amazed by the strength and passion and timing of the younger generations. Like it took me longer to become the activist that I became. Like, my entry point, like, I was always an activist, but my entry point where I was like, no, this is what my calling is. I have to do this. I feel like that entry point seems to be so much earlier for a lot of these young ones. And I'm so inspired by it, where I'm just like, my God, how are you like 16 years old or 14 years old and you are representing at the United Nations, and you are, you know, and I'm just like, these young ones are powerful. And that's what gives me hope, is like, we have to protect them. Right? We have to protect them so that they can change the world.
Yeah. Do you want to set up the Unforgotten clip with us? Because it ties into all this discussion.
Yeah. So this was a tune that I feel strongly that I was merely the conduit for. It is a collaboration in the most truest definition of what a collaboration could be. I was sitting at my hand drum at my table with my hand drum, and a friend of mine had gifted me with the powwow section that's in that song. And so I just had that playing on my computer in the background, just on loop over and over and over. And so I was drumming and singing, and within like a moment, the song was just kind of written. And it was like, it fell from the sky, and it became this piece where I wanted it to be something like the sense of frustration, the level of frustration that I was experiencing at that time was just like way up there. And I wanted to offer, in the way that I could, I don't know how to say, like, something for us to come together on and feel a connection and a level of pride in our stories, where we come from, the young ones coming up, where we're going, like all of it all together in a way that we could present it to, you know, people in general, and give room for anybody to feel that level of pride. Right? So it's a community song. It is meant to be inclusive. I use it at shows to be a bit of what I joke has become like native karaoke, because during the powwow section, the lyrics are inviting the spirit in, the great spirit in, to come and help heal the people. Right? And so I teach this to the audience, and my audiences are vast. There's no, this has been a conversation in behind the scenes. There's no way you could put a finger on it to say like, oh, iskwē's audiences are between this age and they're of this demographic. Like that's just not something we can do. And so, you know, imagine on stage, you've got up on the big screens, Ojibwe, because it's the lyrics are in Ojibwe. You've got Ojibwe up there. And as I'm learning, am also, you know, being a conduit to the audience to learn this as well. And it's pretty powerful when you're in a room of like 600 people and you hear 600 people singing back to you in Ojibwe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. So
let's have a look.
The Unforgotten.
That's pretty amazing. I remember that night very well, and it sort of takes me back to, as I said, one of the last live gigs that I saw. So thank you for that.
I was going to say I've seen photos of that show for a while now, and it looked like quite the spectacle. So congratulations on that.
Thank you. It was, you know what, it was a dream come true. It was a lot of planning and a lot of support went into that, like support of the vision. And, you know, I really need to thank everybody that was involved, because it took a village to get that to actually take place. So.
Well, the super exciting thing is that we're hoping to develop that vision further at Stanford later this year. iskwē is going to be joining us in January for almost a month, where we're going to be working more on developing this. And it's a really special year at Stanford as well, too, because it's the 50th anniversary of the powwow. And we've had a long history with Native Americans on the Stanford campus, dating back to, and it was a time of social activism the last time that there was this moment where in the late 60s, early 70s, the Stanford mascot used to be the Indian. And at the time, the students really started to raise awareness about why that was wrong. And made that change, and since then have been very active on campus. So part of the thing that we're going to be celebrating this year is that 50th anniversary of the powwow. So having you here to be part of that, and William, you know, we're working on getting down here as well too to do a studio show with us. We're really excited to have both of you live and on campus after getting this sort of sneak preview about both what incredible artists and incredible individuals you both are. So I want to give you a big thanks for that. Any final thoughts?
I was just going to say, you should CC that email over to Washington, you know, while things are going on down there. If you can change the mascot, you know? Send the Cliff's Notes over there. That's all I ask. So, well, thanks for having me and being a part of this, bringing me together with a friend I haven't seen. Like, this is one of those joys of collaboration and getting to share songs and say stuff, you know, and speak on things that are important right now. It feels good. It feels good inside to stand and speak about what's important like that. So thank you for inviting me and having me here. This was terrific.
Yeah. Likewise, I echo exactly what you just said. It's always it's one of the things that I love about what we do, you know, because it's often so solitary, but then we get these moments where we do get to spend time with friends who we don't get to see often. And you know, it's such a blessing to to get to feel those sorts of things, that connection again. And I mean, I'm honored to be included. So I want to thank you for the opportunities.
Thank you. And I want to thank our friends at the Digital Moose Lounge who are also hosting us tonight. It's been a great discussion, and here's to many more. Thanks again for being with us, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers.